So, do you guys remember back when Donald Trump used to brag about how rich he was when he was running in 2015 and that he didn't need any billionaire donor money or really any donor money because of how rich and how successful his businesses are, and that he could do it all by himself, he could fund himself, and he didn't need anybody, and he could do it all on his own because he was so great and magnificent? Well, let's go ahead and fast forward to now and we can see this. Trump media merger approved, paving way for a deal that could make him billions. Now, this might look like he is doing it all on his own until you remember the fact that Donald Trump was in the hole for about $500 million and he was begging, quite literally begging for money to donors to, give him some money because he was under the threat of losing everything, including Trump Tower and all the rest of his properties potentially. So somebody went in and bailed him out. So let's just go ahead and dig into this a bit. Shareholders of Digital World Acquisition Corporation approved a merger with Donald Trump's media company on Friday, days before the former president is facing a deadline to pay 464 a $464 million bond based on a New York civil fraud judgment he is appealing. Trump Media and Technology Group will now trade on the stock market under DJT. The New York Times reported is that the deal will put $300 million into Trump's media company, giving a cash infusion to keep Truth Social running. The merger also means that the stock market price for Trump's media company will reportedly be $5 billion, giving Trump a personal stake of $3 billion. Now, let's go over to The Guardian because they go into detail as well. I believe it's a pretty good article. Shares in Digital World Acquisition is a shell company in which Trump's social media business has merged, has been surging since the turn of the year. Trump's media arrival on the market has netted the former president a paper fortune of $4.6 billion, which is important because that is on paper and it's not something that he can even touch until 6 months later. After the deal closed on Monday, Bloomberg said that Trump had joined the ranks of the world's 500 wealthiest people for the first time. Trump, who is currently unable to offload his stake, which I just talked about, will need the stock to continue to trade at the levels to which it has surged in recent months if he is to raise billions of dollars from the sale. Now, keep in mind, True Social is not a very popular site, and I doubt that it can ride and coast alone for 6 months. Maybe it will because Trump has a bunch of connections. Maybe they can hook him up somehow. It comes as Trump, who was vying to regain the presidency from Joe Biden in November's elections, grapples with hefty legal costs. He is on the hook for $545 million after a civil fraud case. Although the former president was thrown a lifeline on Monday, this part is very important. When a panel of appellate court judges provided him with 10 days to secure a far smaller $175 million bond. So he got a huge bailout there because Donald Trump was on the hook for a lot of money because I don't care who you are. $454 million is a lot of money. It's a large sum of money. And he was in big trouble. But now it looks like he is, getting some kind of deal, backdoor deal. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Trump Media has struggled since True Social's lackluster launch, which I talked about earlier, generating sales of only $5 million since 2021, which is not a lot for a company at that scale, especially for what Trump needs now. But Digital World has increasingly been seen as a so-called meme stock boosted by internet memes posted in its case on platforms including Truth Social, urging retail investors to buy into it. And now let's talk about Digital World, because Digital World isn't, there's a big guy who is paving the way for Donald Trump. And I want to talk about him too, because this kind of sheds or kind of tears apart, well, I was going to say the credibility of Donald Trump, but I mean, let's be honest, he doesn't really have any to begin with. But the idea that Donald Trump isn't bought out by politicians or wealthy businessmen is, he can't even say that anymore, because let's just go ahead and dig into this guy named Jeff Yass. I think I'm pronouncing his name right. But anyways, let's go to Jeff Yass. Who is this guy? Well, let's find out together. Who is Jeff Yass, Pennsylvania's Republican mega donor and TikTok investor? Jeff Yass, 65, is the richest man in Pennsylvania. He lives in the Philly suburbs and has been a prominent local and national campaign donor, often to Republicans in recent years. Yass was an early investor in the China-based startup that created and runs TikTok, giving him a big stake in what's now one of the world's most valuable social media apps. And in Congress, attempted to either ban TikTok or end its ties to China. Let's scroll down here a bit further. While Yass is a Republican mega donor, he has financed candidates of both parties who support school choice, including public support for private education, as well as charter schools. A longtime supporter of libertarian politics. Oh boy, yep. A libertarian. Yass champions private and charter schools and has showered millions on politicians who take positions he supports. His school advocacy has drawn the ire of public school teacher unions. Can't imagine why. And his support for conservative groups in Israel has also made Yass a target of Jewish liberals. So check this out. Mr. Yass's firm would become one of Trump's media's larger institutional shareholders when it begins trading this week after the merger. Now, these people, these mega billionaire donors, don't just give you large sums of money and bail you out of insane amounts of troubles for no reason. They're going to want something back. And I believe he's already getting something back, or at least a promise, in Donald Trump. So let's go ahead and take a look at that, right? Because Donald Trump wanted to ban TikTok a long time ago. This is from 2020. Trump issues orders banning TikTok and WeChat from operating in 45 days if they are not sold by Chinese parent companies. This is what Donald Trump wanted to do. Now, let's go ahead and fast forward to now, after Donald Trump has been talking to Jeff Yass. And let's go ahead and see what Donald Trump says now. Here's a pretty good interview by CNBC. I'll go ahead and play it. It's pretty long, about maybe a minute or two, but I think it is worth hearing. Let's go ahead and take a look at it.
He doesn't go to jail.
Mr. President, though, is TikTok, but do you believe that TikTok is a national security threat or not? Because if it is, and I believe that the emergency powers order that you had put in place at the time suggested that it was that not true?
I do believe that. I do believe it, and we have to very much go into privacy and make sure that we are protecting the American people's privacy and data rights. And I agree, but, you know, we also have that problem with you have that problem with Facebook and lots of other companies, too. I mean, they get the information, they get plenty of information, and they deal with China, and they'll do whatever China wants. You know, if you look at some of our American companies, when you talk about highly sophisticated companies that you think are American, they're not so American. They deal in China, and China, if China wants anything from them, they will give it. So that's a national security risk also. But when I look at it, I'm not looking to make Facebook double the size. And if you ban TikTok, Facebook, and others, but mostly Facebook will be a big beneficiary. And I think Facebook has been I think Facebook has been very bad for our country, especially when it comes to elections.
Mr. President, you met recently with Jeff Yass, who's a hedge fund manager, has a stake in TikTok. He's a huge GOP donor. Steve Bannon has suggested that you've been paid off to switch your view. How did your view change? How did that come about? And did you have a conversation with Jeff Yass about it?
No, I didn't. I met with him very briefly. I made a speech, and I said hello to him and his wife, who's lovely. And actually, her primary thing was on education. She wants choice, as I do. And she mentioned to me more than anything, we talked about education. It was a meeting that lasted for a few minutes. No, the only one I met was I met them both, and they're, I don't think I ever met him before, but he never mentioned TikTok. She did mention school choice, and that's what her whole. In fact, she said my whole life is based around school.
Yeah. So Donald Trump claims that. Well, let's go ahead and back it up. So Donald Trump wanted to get rid of TikTok. So he talks and gets the money from Yass. Now he's, for some reason, for whatever reason, is switching his entire position on banning TikTok because something, Facebook, they're bad people and I don't like them. So we shouldn't ban TikTok because it makes Facebook stronger and I don't like that. So I'm not going to. It's a load of crap. And the idea that this multi-billionaire is going to give Trump all of the resources he needs to get out of this trouble, to basically save part of his empire. And, Donald Trump is like, oh, this has no influence on me at all. Come on, get out of here. It's nonsense. I mean, do you believe Donald Trump, somebody who is a habitual liar, who is so fluent in lying, it's almost, well, it is second nature to Donald Trump. So I don't believe it for an absolute second. Now, I do believe is that they talked about school choice because that is something that this libertarian dude is apparently into. But yeah, I call absolute nonsense that this has no influence over Donald Trump. So let's go ahead and keep in mind, if Donald Trump can flip on an issue just like that after talking to this multi-billion-dollar billionaire who just happened to have the ability and the access and the resources to seemingly, or at least try to bail out Donald Trump, what else will Donald Trump flip on? So now you got to think about it. Is Donald Trump bought out by a billionaire? In my opinion, he is. Donald Trump has a sugar daddy at this point, and is the idea that Donald Trump can just walk around and say, oh, I don't need anybody else's help. Come on. We all know it's a lie now. So let me know what you think in the comment section.